Good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody doing this morning? JTW here, Tuesday, December the 3rd. Coming at you all with another Xtrades FOMO live stream. I hope everybody had a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving. Hope you all enjoyed some downtime, recharged those batteries, and get ready to close out 2024 strong. We're in the last month of the year. Getting ready to head into 2025. So it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how the markets want to cap off what has been, I would say, a pretty impressive year for the markets. Will that continue, or will we start to see some significant profit taking as we head into toward the latter half of December? Obviously, that all remains to be seen, but we'll kind of do our best to have plans in place and be ready to go regardless of which direction things decide to move in. So as always, going to do a quick little recap on ES. Let me get my screen sharing started over in the Discord and get the chat open over there as well. What's up, Navy Plum? Good morning. Hope you're doing well. All right, I got all my chats lined up. I got my screens going. I got my mic going. I think we are ready to rock here. So, yeah, we have a couple of trade plans to take a look at. It'll be pretty brief on those. Just Fastly and Soundhound from last Tuesday, from over a week ago, or right at a week ago. Obviously, with the markets being closed Thursday, we just haven't had a live stream since. And then, I was out of pocket doing family stuff and all those sort of things. So I did not have a chance to do any member selected tickers or anything like that over the weekend. So we only have a couple of plans to review. If there's any plans out there that I don't currently have set up for review, please, feel free to ask, and we'll take a look at those and review them as well. And then, of course, we'll be getting to some new trade plans this morning, and we'll have plenty of time for those. So if anybody has any ticker requests, feel free to go ahead and start dropping those in the chats, whether you be on YouTube or Discord. Go ahead and start getting those into the mix so we can have those lined up and ready to go once we finish up this sort of brief review and overall market sentiment discussion. So where are we at here on S&P Futures ES? We are through this supply zone now, clearly. I think we may have put another one in place, another 4-hour supply zone, or might be looking to put one in place off of this doji right here. A lot of times those do turn into supply and demand zones. In this case, I would expect it to turn into a supply zone. We are butting up against this 60, 63, 75. That's a fib extension that I've had in place for quite a while now. We're printing above it, but we're really struggling to get any candles to close above. A lot of candles closing and opening right off of that resistance. We're also putting in a little bit of an ascending triangle pattern here. So I'd be looking for this one to essentially ultimately squeeze to the downside or the upside as we sort of run out of room on these trend lines, which should happen in the very near future. So that should give us some signs of what's to come. Certainly, if the market pulls back below 60.41 here, I'd be hedging and looking to do what I can to de-risk on my long exposure side a little bit. Or add some, again, hedges, or throw some covered calls on if you have share positions that are big enough, whatever the case might be. But I'd be watching that 60.41 level pretty closely as a sign for a potential bigger pullback. I think if we can break over this recent current all-time high there at 60.6825, I wouldn't be surprised to see that make another leg up and push higher. At which point, I've got some older fib extensions. I'm guessing that's probably the 1.618 would be my guess. So that would be the next kind of major leg up. But we'll need to take a look at this and probably put some resistance levels, some smaller fib extension sets in here to try to get a good sense of where else we might find resistance along the way. It's not going to be a straight move up to 61.83, obviously. So we'll want to know kind of how to handle and anticipate any potential bumps in the road along the way. But really, we've got to get over, and let me go ahead and mark this level on my chart. I'll put an alert on it. I'll also get to work on some new fib extensions after the live stream. Put this in as kind of a placeholder for now. But yeah, off that 60, 68, 75, is that, but we're about where that tops out. 60, 68, 50, close enough, right? There we go. So that's kind of a tight little window that we could consolidate in, or we could see a big break out of either the upside or the downside of that. So 60, 68, 50 to the upside, 60, 41 to the downside on ES. Those are the two key levels I'd be watching for a potential move higher or lower. So let's get to some trade plan reviews. Navy Plum also wants me to do a review of SoFi. Excuse me, we can take a look at that as well. SoFi has definitely been cruising, at least last I checked on it. Excuse me, let me get some of this coffee in here. There we go. All right. So, Fastly, we did this one again last Tuesday. Pretty much consolidated, stayed sideways for the most part until we got to pre-market yesterday, and then it had this huge move to the upside, broke over our call entry, and ultimately started the run straight up to PT2 for calls, or PT2 on the long side, whichever way you want to look at that. But it was most of the way there pre-market. I looked at it. I personally wasn't too interested with kind of how big this move was pre-market. We did see shortly after the open a break above and back test of PT1 that could have been a potential entry there. But again, to me, it just felt a little too much like chasing after making this massive move up from 860 pretty much all the way up to 923 before the markets even opened. So that just wasn't a move I was really all that interested in chasing. So I didn't do anything with it personally. If you happen to, for some reason, already be in, there was some interesting back testing and confluences taking place down here. But again, a lot of that stuff was taking place outside of regular market hours. So not very useful price action from an options trading standpoint. Continues to kind of go sideways between PT1 and 2 here. PT1, another back test of that with the 200 SMA now catching up, at least on the 5-minute, could potentially be interesting, but I wouldn't be rushing into Fastly at the moment. Soundhound, this one's given us a break to the upside. Again, we did this plan last Tuesday. It consolidated for the most part until Friday. Friday gave us a nice push to the upside. Back test of the call entry there at $9 flat. It's kind of gone sideways since making that move. I do like where the SMAs have caught up here on the 15-minute and how they're both stacked up right here near our stop loss average down at 833. I would say that $8.33 on this looks like a pretty good buy the dip level in my opinion. So keep that in mind and on watch. Sorry, my dog just stepped on the remote and turned the TV on in the background. Oh boy. So Soundhound again, pushing to the upside here. I do like this 833 as a buy the dip level. So this one's, still I think leaning bullish to me. But again, I'd like a break of that 833 level or look for another break and back test of $9 flat to look for this to finally start hitting some of these upside targets. All right, and then we had SoFi. For my good friend Navy Plum. For those of you on the YouTube side of things, I see that we've got viewers, but I don't see much chat action. So guys, feel free to say hello, chime in. We've got the chats open. Get your ticker requests in. I have one to look at already with Intel. I know they just had a change of CEOs, or the CEO just announced a resignation. What was that? Like right over the long weekend, I think. So that could be interesting to see what that does for Intel's share price in the near future. What's up, Chris? Good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. All right, so let's take a look at this SoFi plan. This one we did, it looks like member selected tickers from last weekend. This one's a little frustrating. It's a little frustrating because it keeps giving what look like confirmed breaks of the put entry, but then it does something like this where it, looks like a good confirmed break to the downside, but then you got the 333 right there that had kind of come way up above PT1 in the period of time between putting out that plan and when the price action finally made a break, and of course found some support in that range and pushed up, and then we get to the upside and it kind of struggles to finish the move to the upside. So yeah, SoFi is one that I'm gonna go take a deeper look at my levels, to be perfectly honest with you. I just don't like how we've gotten sort of two fake outs on both sides of this in less than a week, or in a week. I don't think we really ever see that. I mean, it's maybe, if I was going to throw an anecdotal guess at what percentage of our trade plans see a stop out on both sides, in the span of a week, I'd say it's probably 5% or less if I had to guess. So this is one where I'm going to want to go take a look at where I've got my levels at on SoFi at some of these higher price points. The last time I really did any deep charting on SoFi, it was still in the, $7 range. And believe it or not, that wasn't all that long ago, even though it's up at $16 now. So let me take another look at this. The review is, I see a perfectly good case for having been stopped out in both of those instances. If you're tracking things like the 333 SMA on the 15-minute, you might have seen trouble ahead with this potential downside entry there. It does look to be rolling over to the bearish side to me. I will say that. Lots of confluence of resistance overhead at 1596 and 1611. To me, it looks like a pretty decent short opportunity, actually, if it breaks back below this 1580. And I think you could use 1611 as a stop. And I'd be looking at either 1548 or maybe even as low as 1531 as a first downside price target. But yeah, I'm a little annoyed with SoFi and annoyed with myself that these levels have not responded better, or the price action hasn't responded better to the levels and played through the plans the way they normally would. So yeah, this is one I'm gonna have to go take a deeper look at. I'm glad you brought it up, Navy Plum, because I don't like to have weak levels or inaccurate levels out there that I'm going to continue to use. So SoFi is one that I'm going to definitely totally revisit, maybe even start from scratch with my levels. I just don't like how this price action is playing when it kind of gets to what look like key levels to me. So I'll take some time to do a deeper dive on SoFi, and we'll come back with a better plan on this one for sure. But thanks for bringing it up for sure, because I didn't realize this one had kind of gone sort of, we're going to go low, or we're going to go high, and just sort of fizzled out both directions. It's not a great look. It also looks to just kind of be an overall choppy consolidation phase possibly. But again, I don't want to, I got to put ownership on the levels and the plans that I put out, and not happy with myself on this one. Long story short. All right, so let's take a look at some of these new trade plan requests. Let's get to some new charts and plans. We've got Intel in the mix from New Trader over in the Discord. And then I see Boyack. What's up, Boyack? Looking for coin. Good morning to you as well. All right, Intel. So let's see. The CEO shift caused, looks like, a temporary spike in things, and it's come back and keeps back testing this 2337 weekly support. That also was a call entry from a previous trade plan. I don't know how long ago we did that plan. Looks like we did it back in September on a live stream. Let's see how this is held up. It has fallen short a few times in the past of getting all the way to PT1 over our call entry, and here we see that again. Now we're seeing the targets hit though. All right, just trying to get a sense of sort of how this is played out through our levels. It looks like I've also had mostly just higher level or higher time frame support and resistance charted on this. So let's clean this chart up and let's get to work. And if y'all have any questions or any topics you want me to wax poetic on while I work on this, please feel free, ask away. I like to fill the dead air with musings and ruminations on life as a in the world of trading. All right, so let's take a look at this. I'm gonna flip my indicators off just for a little bit. I'm gonna take a look at price action alone here for a minute. Brian Brown, views on XLM XRP. Sorry, XLM. Sorry. Correct me if I'm wrong, but sorry, I'm thinking about, yeah, okay, I was gonna say, aren't they crypto? So if you want my take on, I'm not much of a crypto expert. I don't get too deep into the crypto stuff and all the different coins that are out there and all that. So yeah, I thought I recognized XRP, XLM. I'm not, is XRP, is that Ripple? Is that what that is? I think XRP. What's XLM? Just out of curiosity. Like, which coin is that, Ryan? I don't. XRP's Ripple. Is XLM also Ripple? Monero XOP Ripple. Okay. Yeah. So you picked a great subject for me to not have much to say about, to talk about, but I'll talk about crypto, a little bit kind of in generalities. I mean, clearly, Bitcoin has been on a huge run. It's been interesting to see that really get triggered post-election. I kind of wonder if a lot of this is buy the rumor type stuff. I could be wrong. Again, I'm not by no means a crypto expert, but my sort of general take on it is it's at an interesting inflection point. I think it really needs to, and I think all these other ones are going to move with Bitcoin, right? So I'll kind of talk about, Ripple and this Monero, which I'm not at all familiar with, in the context of, what's going on with Bitcoin. And so to that end, I would say, Bitcoin really needs to crack that, what am I looking for? That golden ceiling of 100,000. I think if Bitcoin can get over that, all crypto is going to move pretty aggressively. But that's going to be a key moment, right? And the other thing that'll be very interesting to see is, how much selling kicks in when it does hit 100K. I got to imagine there's a lot of people with just automatic sell orders set at 100K from, buying in the 60,000 range or something like that. Over 100,000, I think it's going to get very interesting in the whole crypto sector. It could really take off from there. And it's an interesting concept, right? I mean, it's a really, to me, and I'm going to kind of digress maybe a little bit here. It kind of shows, or is a really good case in point about anything can have value if we as a society agree and assign value to it, right? Kind of like the really, fiat currency, dollars and, whatever. I'm not going to claim to know about foreign currencies or anything like that, but let's talk about the dollar, for example. There used to be a thing called the gold standard, which was, every US dollar was backed by the appropriate amount of gold. I think that has clearly gone to the wayside quite a long time ago. So, crypto is kind of the same thing, right? It's sort of, for a long time, everybody was like, it's fake money. It's not real, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, if you think about it, it's almost as real or it's about as real or legitimate as the dollar is right now. As far as it's all just a system of agreement that we all say, okay, this is worth something. This piece of paper is worth something. It's the same thing with crypto. This, this blockchain assembled coin is worth something. We all agree it's worth something, and that price continues to move. So it's going to be, and move aggressively. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens at that 100K point. And also, if it can break through that, what that kind of does to just currencies in general. We've already seen some countries. I think it was, somebody call me out if I'm wrong on this. Wasn't it It wasn't Argentina. Was it El Salvador? One of those, Argentina or El Salvador, one of those, didn't they essentially adopt Bitcoin as like Bitcoin's like the national currency now? It's not Argentina, I don't think. Is it El Salvador? Somebody help me out with that one. But the overall point being is that we've got again, all this stuff is just it's agreement that there's value there, right? So I would say there seems to be a lot of agreement right now that El Salvador, there seems to be a lot of agreement now that crypto is valuable, potentially very valuable. I think it just has some kind of key thresholds that once it breaks through that belief system is going to continue to increase, and people are going to have confidence in holding versus feeling the need to sell. But that's kind of the other thing, right? Is I think crypto is a little bit unique in that it gets traded almost like a stock, and that trading overall affects the value of it as a currency. Whereas, there are currency exchanges where, you can trade dollars and stuff like that. But by and large, you don't see a lot of that kind of moving what the value of a dollar is all that much, right? Whereas crypto can be traded and the value of it can move very quickly. So that's going to be, I think, kind of one thing that's always going to be a challenge with crypto until it stabilizes a little bit more and gets through this period of volatility, is that it does become a potential, liquidity event is probably the right way to say it. If you get overly leveraged into crypto, and for some reason, the world at large decides to start bailing out on crypto, and you don't pull the trigger in time, all of a sudden your savings goes from, $1 million to $200,000. It's like, oh, well, yeah, maybe I should have stuck to something a little more stable. So it's, it's a high risk, high reward proposition. But I would say, again, overall, crypto is in a really interesting spot. I think that there's a lot of, what's the right word for this? A lot of assumption that the incoming administration is going to be very favorable to crypto. You have to wonder how much of that is going to come to fruition and how much of that was campaign talk, right? Trying to get, the quote unquote bro vote, if you will. So it's going to be very interesting. I think, again, all of it is going to really come down to, regardless of if it's XRP, XLM, whoever, or whichever, I should say, coin we want to discuss. I think a lot of it's going to come down to what Bitcoin does and whether or not, what happens to Bitcoin after it breaks 100K. If it can continue to build on that momentum from there, I think things look very positive for the entire crypto sector, and that would include coin, which we're getting ready to take a look at. But it's at that, it's at that precipice. It's at that threshold, keeps knocking on that door, but so far it's had a very hard time getting through it. So that's kind of my spiel on crypto while I did this trade plan. Again, 100K is the key level. If we see things start to backslide, like if Bitcoin loses 90K, I would be very concerned for the near-term future for crypto and crypto-related tickers. But yeah, and talk about going back to El Salvador. I mean, again, you could have an entire country get wrecked if things with Bitcoin go the wrong way. But I think that they've kind of been in it for a while now. I don't know how they've kind of done that or how they're handling that from a, is their government liquidating crypto and moving that into some kind of more stable currency every once in a while? I'm not sure what their strategy is behind it, but it's a very interesting approach. And right now, it seems to be going very favorably for El Salvador, which is, I would say typically a pretty, second world country. I've been there. I've actually got family from El Salvador, believe it or not. And so it definitely has its beautiful parts, but most of it is pretty, it's not anything close to what you see here in the U.S. in any part of the U.S. Even the worst parts of the U.S. are, kind of nowhere near as sort of don't have far more infrastructure, I should say, is probably the right way to say that, than, some of the average parts of El Salvador. Yeah, for sure. That would be a good assumption, Ryan. All right, so let's take a look at our Intel live stream plans here. Again, you kind of got me on a subject that I'm not an expert in by any stretch. I very loose understanding of crypto and the different coins and stuff like that out there. So yeah, put everything I just said in the take all of that with a grain of salt, put it in the for what it's worth category, I guess is what I'm trying to say. All right, so let's recap these Intel live stream plans, and then we will get to coin. Let me get this in the watch list as well. Yeah, I mean, it's probably third world. El Salvador is probably, and most of my personal exposure to El Salvador has been Roatan. I'm sorry, that's Honduras. Sorry, different place. But most of my exposure to it has been kind of some of the nicer parts, but I've also driven through some of the, shadier parts as well. Roatan, sorry, wrong trip. I was thinking of something else. Honduras is another, though, pretty run down if you're not in the right part of the country. All right, so let's get to it. Let's talk through these Intel live stream plans. What are we looking for here on Intel? We're looking for a break over 2463 to go long or take calls. Over 2463 should give us targets at 2559, 2649, and 2758, with a stop loss average down at 2380, which we're testing right here. To the downside, we're looking for a break below 2302. That should give us targets at 2218, 2164, and 2104, with a shared stop loss average down there with the upside trade plan at 2380. That is Intel for you. All right, let's take a look at coin was next for Boyac. Yeah, I like the idea of young leadership in this day and age, and I certainly hope that 4 years from now, America decides to go that direction, because Seems to me like the old white guys just ain't cutting it anymore. Has not been a great run from a leadership standpoint over the last decade. All right, let's take a look at coin. And let's clean up these levels. Coin clearly been a while since I've looked at it. Got some new all-time highs here in place. Going to need to take a look at some of these levels. How did that not get caught out? Because it wasn't in my group there. Don't need this anymore. That to there. Don't need those. Okay, let's take a look at this. Oh, not new all-time highs, just recent highs. Okay. Although I don't know if we'll be able to go back to November of 21 on any kind of a smaller time frame, but let's see if we can't. I mean, probably not find any levels. Let's see if we can at least get back there on the daily chart. I'd like to see what the price action did. All right. That's an interesting level. If you guys have any other topics, by the way, you want me to, again, kind of go down a rabbit hole on, feel free to drop those in the chat. Even if it's something I may not be an expert in, I'll do my best to fake it until I say something that sounds smart. That's an interesting... Did we get when this... Yeah, but that's kind of the first real post-IPO test. So that's kind of an interesting level to me. I don't know if it really is going to matter all that much, but let's see. Just trying to figure out. This was probably, I would think, still early days for coin back in 2021. All kinds of weirdness still going on back then. Just wonder what the volume is like on some of these moves, but may not ultimately be that important. This is an interesting level. It doesn't get used a bunch, but won't have much else to work with as far as actual price action is concerned. So let's see how that stacks up with this more recent move. Let's take a look on the hourly here. That 287.37 key level there. 333 coming up. That gap is pretty much filled. Yeah, let's call that filled. All right, and it bounced, which is a good sign. So where do we want to take a shot at coin? I think there's an interesting downside opportunity if it does break below 287.37. I'm not leaning bearish on this, by the way. This just happened to stick out to me first. I could take us down, or I would be surprised if it didn't take us down to at least 276.71. Below that gets interesting again, because there could be support right there at 273.58. I know this sounds, or it's going to look a little crazy with having two targets that close to each other, but I think there's really good bounce opportunities at both of those spots, so I would not want to be holding too long for downside as we test some of those key supports. Want to see, yeah, that's kind of the level I had my eye on. It's at 268.04. Yeah. So it's kind of a big move potentially for the first price target, and then things start to find sort of a area where there's a lot of potential supports in place. But took all day to actually break out. Besides the confirmed break candles, or anything else important to help with following the SPY plan? Good question, Shades. Check your moving averages, VWAP, things like that. I think indicators can be very helpful in kind of enhancing your ability to execute a trade plan. We talked about that sort of a little bit in the context of SoFi here, where, looking at this 200 and 333, still bullish, still trending to the upside, and clearly in the period of time between when this plan was published and when it actually played out to the downside, the 333 had caught up with the price action quite a bit. And, I've got these trend ribbons, and people use EMA combos all the time. SMA combos, I think, are kind of equally valid. And so when I look at something like this with the 200 above the 333 and still trending to the upside, I kind of think of this whole area, right, as buying pressure all through there, with kind of two key points of buying pressure, but very fluid. So, this, using that kind of quick example there, whoops, let me just... So this entry right here is kind of not as ideal of a setup, as this is, now that we're breaking below those SMAs. So if we get another break below 1548, we could see that downside plan actually play out. But let me see if I can give you a quick example on SPY specifically. So again, this is, I don't want this to turn into a pitch for Neptune, but in this particular case, as I'm looking at SPY and looking at the SPY plan, I've got a key level and key buying pressure here. So a key level from the plan, I saw that got bought up once previously within the day. You kind of see that exact same spot with that same confluence of buying pressure there. SMAs just below, kind of giving a backstop. So if that does fail, you kind of have something else in place that can also bounce the price in your favor if you're looking to play this bounce. But yeah, this is one where it kind of moved slow all day. It was sort of a grindy slog sideways for the most part. First trading day of December, last month of the year, just came back from holidays. Maybe not everybody was back from holidays yet, so I think it was a pretty low volume day as well. So a lot of that can influence things. But yeah, I would say use indicators to kind of help enhance your ability to sort of pick out, okay, if I've published, these 9 or 10 levels, whatever the case might be, for you, keep those levels on watch, but find places where those levels in your indicators that you like to look at are all kind of saying the same thing. So that's kind of one thing I would throw out there as a way to perhaps enhance your ability to execute on the daily SPY plans. So I hope that helps. And yeah, some of my favorites would be, especially if you want to talk about indicators that are just free and readily available, auto-anchored VWAP, one of my personal favorites, 200, 333 SMA, the 921 EMA is a classic combo. All those are good to look at. Again, me personally, I've built an indicator that does what I want it to do, and continue to build on it and improve it. So, that's what I go with. But again, I don't want this to turn into a sales pitch for Neptune, because that's not the point of these sessions. It's really more just to kind of talk about there were some opportunities in there that I don't know what other indicators you would have been able to see those opportunities with, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. But again, if we're focusing on things that are just purely free to access, if you've got any version of TradingView, you could go out there and pull those indicators up. Again, 200, 333 SMAs, a couple of my favorites, 921 EMA, and of course, auto-anchored VWAP. I think pivots, Camarilla pivots are another good one to look at. Alexander talks about those regularly. Sometimes I find some really interesting confluences. Those pivots sometimes line up exactly with SPY plan levels, and that is really, I think, a great sign of confluence. I generally speaking pick the SPY plan levels with my pivots turned off, and then I turn them on because I don't want to get kind of drawn into just focusing too much on an indicator. I really want to use, my skill set, I guess, as an analyst to come up with the levels first. And then if I find the confluences after the fact, it becomes pretty interesting. Or if I have a level that's very close, like I have like two levels that I'm debating between for a potential price target or entry level or whatever the case might be for the SPY plan. If I'm debating between two potential entries and one of them has a confluence with a pivot, I'd probably in that case defer to the level that has the confluence and use it over the other one that I was debating between. So yeah, those Camarilla pivots are another really great indicator, especially if we get those lining up with the key levels from the SPY plan. Those tend to be very good levels to watch, in my experience. All right, here we go. This is our coin trade plan. Hopefully all that was helpful. Shades, if you have any other questions, feel free to DM. Let me know. Always happy to help. Yeah, the way that I kind of look at, and I'll kind of make this my last little spiel before I get into the covering this trade plan. I talk about this a lot when I do mentoring sessions with folks. I really like to approach my trade setups, and this, the analogy that I'm going to draw is just, because my background is in IT, I kind of think about it as like two-factor authentication, right? So if we're looking at the SPY plan, and then we have, so that, the SPY plan is sort of like in the world of two-factor authentication, that's like my password, right? It's something that I've created. Those are levels that I've studied, drawn. I've come up with, I've used my human brain to come up with those levels and decide, where I think key areas of support and resistance are going to be. So then you layer on top of these key levels your indicators, and where you find confluences, that's kind of like your two-factor authentication, right? So like here we see sort of a two-factor authentication, two-factor setup of resistance here as these candles are now below and testing this confluence of the 200 SMA and that weekly level there at 306.08. They kind of keep getting rejected, right? We do see a little break above here, but for the most part, they've been held down by that combination. So things like that become, I think, significant. And really, that's how I like to find my best setups, because it sort of puts my biases in check and sort of, again, when we need, all right, I'm gonna say it this way, and then we'll cap this off. For things to move in the stock market, what do we really need? We need volume, right? We need traders coming in and pushing the price around either higher or lower, right? It takes volume to move things. It takes volume to break through support and resistance levels. So if you kind of think about, let's say, technical support and resistance traders as one audience of people, right? And people who maybe focus a little bit more on things like moving averages and indicators as another audience of people. Generally speaking, if we're somewhere in this range where there's just support, or somewhere where there's just, indicators, you're kind of only appealing to one audience or the other. Where you find those confluences, all of a sudden now you're appealing to both audiences, or you have two groups of people that normally aren't seeing the same opportunity, all seeing the same opportunity at the same time. That brings in the volume, that causes the price action to move. So again, that kind of just goes back to why I think sort of having that multi-factor approach to finding those ideal setups is key as somebody who is going to be a proactive trader. So that's my spiel. I hope you liked it. All right, let's get to this coin trade plan. And let me post this in the watch list as well. All right. So let's talk through these coin live stream plans. What are we looking for on coin? We are looking for a break back above 299.55 for potential push up to 306.08, first bullish target. Then if we can break through that on up to 310.62. And then last but not least, PT3 for the upside, 316.61 with a stop loss average down at 293.96. For the downside of this trade plan, we're looking for a break below 287.37. That should give us a pretty good first price target and a decent move to the downside all the way down to 276.71. Below that, I'd be looking for targets at 273.58 and then on down to 268.04 with a stop loss average down shared with the upside trade plan there at 293.96. Those are your coin live stream plans. All right, with that, I want to thank you all so much for joining me. I hope, again, everybody enjoyed a very happy and bountiful Thanksgiving last week. I hope you enjoyed the time off. I hope you recharged your batteries so we can finish 2024 strong and on the right foot. We will be back Thursday morning with another live stream at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So until then, I want to thank you all again for joining me. As we always say here on these FOMO live streams, plan your trades, trade your plans, keep your wins big, keep your losses small, go out there and get some green. I will see you all in the chats. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you back here Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, take care. Talk to you soon.